Hey guys, Crewman here at MSI's booth at CES 2025. I've got what you've been waiting for, the 5090s. Let's start off with the Ventress 3X OC. Obviously, the Ventress will be the MSRP model, and it's quote unquote the lowest quality model. And you can tell that its finish it's solid. It's not the best, but it's certainly not the worst. And I do like the Ventress models because they usually hover around MSRP or basically as close to it. So now we're going to move on to the Gaming X model. This is pretty similar to what I own. And then we've got the Vanguard. And the Vanguard is cool because the Vanguard is in between the Supreme and the Gaming X. So basically the Vanguard just has more RGB on it because gamers want more RGB. And it's a little bit cheaper than the Supreme, which is their premium top-end one. And I don't have a tape measure. I wish I kind of did. So we're going to use my fingers to measure the thickness between this model and the Ventress. So bear with me, guys. I wish I had a tape measure. So the Ventress model is a little thicker, or thinner, I'm sorry, which is good for if you don't want a 30 or a 5090 that is massive. You can see the intro level, quote unquote, 5090. It's hilarious that I'm literally saying intro level. I'm trying to lift it up, and it's actually probably the lightest 5090, which if you don't want your PC to weigh 1,000,000 pounds, you can at least shave a few pounds off of it with this one, because I definitely can't lift the higher end models with one hand. I wish I had my cameraman here, but thumb the brakes. So that is the 5090 base model, the MSI Ventress 3X. All right, so that's the OC model of the Ventress 3X, and now we're at the Gaming X OC model. They're all OC models. I'm pretty sure that's just so they can mark the price up a little bit and give you a tiny little bit of extra performance. This looks very similar to the 4090 Gaming X that I own. It might actually be a tiny bit smaller, if you can believe that. I'm just trying to show you the PCB. The heatsink is massive, so obviously any of these models from MSI will be able to cool the GPU just fine. I really don't see the need for water block on these things. And this one was definitely a little bit heavier than the Gaming X, than the Ventress. And you can see there's the adapter, the 12 volt high powered. Now I didn't notice any with two 12 volt high powered. We're moving on to the Vanguard model. The Vanguard is in between the Supreme and the Gaming X, like I said. Basically just has RGB on it, and it is, again, a little bit heavier. As you can see, when we go up in quality, the models are just getting a little bigger, and it definitely has a more premium feel to it, which is pretty cool. And your standard 3 DisplayPort, 1 HDMI port, which is pretty cool. I forget if they have display 2.1 or not. I think they do, actually. I think I was told that. And then there's the Supreme, the biggest, strongest, baddest 5090 that MSI will release as of now. It just has a more premium feel than even the Vanguard, although not by much, I would say. But definitely you can tell over the Gaming X and the Ventress, obviously. So we've got 5 total models of the 5090, excuse me, which is pretty cool. Apologize if I messed that up. And you can just see that it has like a carbon fiber-esque feel. I'm not sure if it was real carbon fiber. I didn't get a chance to ask. Oh, and then I do want to show you the water-cooled one. Now, the only difference between this one and its 4090 cousin is that there is a 360 AIO versus a 240 AIO. And again, it only has one of the 12 volt high powered cables. I didn't see 2 in any of MSI's builds, which was pretty nice, as people were worried we would see that. But I can safely say we saw none from MSI. So here's your first look at the 5090s. They are massive, but they might be a little bit smaller than the 4090s in some random cases. So that is a complete look at all of the MSI 5090s that I saw on the front display. I may have missed 1 or 2 in the back, but I did not see the MSI Expert. So without further ado, let's go check out the 5080 after a quick word from our sponsor, because I've got to pay for this trip somehow.
Today's video is brought to you by PC Bros. They offer custom gaming PC builds that fit any budget. And if you don't find a system on their website or in their store that fits your needs, they offer a custom build consultation service to help design the perfect PC for you. On top of that, PC Bros offers a 1-year warranty with all their parts, so you don't have to worry about anything breaking as soon as you bring it home. Use code CRUITMAN for 2% off your next order, and thanks again to PC Bros for sponsoring today's video.
All right, now we're looking at the 5080s, and there's quite a few of them, and I want to look at the disparity in the size from the high-end one to the lowest-end one. That one looks like a Radeon 7. So let's start off first with the hybrid model, the Supreme. Again, just like its 5090 cousin, it has a larger radiator than its previous generation did. And I guess it's just due to the higher TDP on both systems. I kind of think it's overkill, but I guess we'll find out when it's tested. And I guess it'll run cool. And that is the smallest 5080 that MSI makes. And I would wager probably the most expensive. We did not get prices. Next, we have the MSI Supreme, obviously their highest end air-cooled model. It has the same sleek carbon fiber-like feel as the 5090, and it feels like it's basically the same size as the 5090. This thing is massive, and I'm not sure why it's so big. I don't think it needs that. But if you look at the Gaming X Trio, and or the Vanguard, I'm sorry, and the Vanguard is the one in between the Gaming Trio and the Supreme. Like I said, it's just the RGB model. But if you look at the thickness, the higher up we go, it just seems like the bigger it gets, which is kind of crazy. So like, look at the thickness of the Supreme right there. I didn't have a measuring tape, obviously. And then look at the thickness of the Vanguard. It's a little thinner, right? And then I'm going to go measure the thickness of the Supreme again, and we're going to compare it to the Gaming X Trio. And I forgot to do it, so we're going to have to do it over again. And we're going to take the Gaming X Trio, which is really thin. It's kind of what I suspected the 5080 would be like. And you can see that it's literally like 25 to 35% smaller than the Supreme, which is crazy to me. I wonder if we're gonna have issues cooling these quote unquote lower end 5080s, but I really don't think so. I really don't. And that one is definitely lighter, and I think that you don't really want a massive cooler if you don't need one. So I kind of like that model, the Gaming X, better than the higher end models just because of its size. And they all have the same high powered connector too, which, I mean, I'm not surprised there, as these things are monsters with TDP. That is the white version. They're basically the same. And again, these are all OC models. I don't think there's any non-OC model. And I wonder if it's just to squeeze out a little bit extra performance and increase the price as well. I don't know. That's just what I'm assuming. And yeah, there's a lot of 37, there's a lot of 5080s, and I'm still blown away at how different all of these heat sinks are. This is probably the one that I spent the most time with. And then we've got the entry level model, the Ventress OC. And it's got that Ventress feel. Again, it'll be an OC model, so it'll probably be a little bit more than MSRP, but I would suspect that it will be the cheapest model. And as far as thickness, they're basically the same. I picked one up and I put them together. You can basically see they're the same. And those ones are way lighter, like I've already said, than the other 5080s. So that's really it for the 5080s. There's not too much more besides the Inspire. I think that's like their ProArt version model. I didn't really get a chance to talk to anybody about it, but it looks like a Radeon 7. So it automatically is my favorite one, or maybe it's like its AI model, but it's really small, and I still wonder how they're going to cool it. Now, I didn't see one of these on the 5090s. So basically, you see the Inspires on the 5080s and below, as you'll see in a second when we jump over to the 5070 Ti. And no, there is no segue. And you can see there's quite a few models of 5080s, and I think it's cool that they're offering different models, different strokes for different folks, and I'm sure the prices are going to be all over the place. But again, we don't have any of that right now. So let's move on to the 5070 Ti's. Okay, again, as with the 5070 Ti, all I can really do is go over their looks in exhaustive detail, but you're not seeing that anywhere else, so that's why I have no problem sharing it. The Vanguard is a top-end model. No Supreme for anything under 5080. The Ventress is missing, so I'm going to show you the 5080 Ventress, and you can see the Supreme. And ironically, if you take the 5070 Ti Supreme and you compare it to the 5080, they're the same. You literally can't tell the difference. Weight, height, size, everything. And I think that's a trend you'll notice with the Inspire models, which is weird to me, but it's also kind of interesting at the same time. And again, everything is OC on the 5070 Ti's, no non-OC models. So just an excuse to raise the price if I had to guess. And all of them have the 12-volt high-powered cable connector. Even on the 5070s, you're going to notice that's trend. But again, there's no two 12 volts as you can expect. So like I already told you, the Ventress is gone right now. So I'm going to show you the 5080. It was basically like the same size, which was kind of surprising to me. I thought it would be maybe a little bit smaller, but that is a pretty small 5080. And there it is, it's back again. So I'm assuming that they'll cool the 5070 Ti just fine, because these are not chunky GPUs. Like basically every one, but the top end model is 2 slots. I think the top end model may be a tiny bit bigger. But yeah, there's nothing too different from the other lines. MSI kind of kept everything pretty relative as far as the models go. Obviously, the heatsink is a little smaller. But that's basically it. And some of, like I said already, some of the 5080s have the same heatsink size. So I mean, there's really not too much else to talk about in regards to the 5070 Ti. We don't really know much about it, and this is just me comparing all the models. And the Inspire has more RGB, as I've already said. So that's really it. Like I said, there's not much else to say. It's pretty generic. So let's move on to the one I know you've all been waiting for. GPU you've all been waiting for. The one that Jensen shocked the world with. The 4090. I mean, the 5070, right? Right? The highest end 4090, I mean 5070, is the Vanguard, same as the 5070 Ti. I think you're going to not be that surprised with some of the 5070 choices. There are some interesting SKUs, but basically most of them are the same, minus the Ventress 2 fans. And again, the Inspire is the same. There's like 8 of these almost, which is kind of wild. I don't know why there's so many, but I guess, people want white, and I know that MSI talked about bringing white models back. The Inspire, again, it looks the same and feels the same as the 70 Ti and 80, and all the 70s this time around do not have your typical power plug. They have the 12 volt high powered connector, which is kind of a bummer as I don't think they need it, but it is what it is. And then you can see the white 2 fans. I'm curious to see how these cool because I've never seen a 2 fan 4090 that small. Wink, 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 wink. They have the same feel as the Ventress. Nothing spectacular about them. I mean, as far as looks go, these are very uninspiring. They're basically just the smallest versions you see. They very much remind me of the 40s, 70s. Overall, there's not that much design change with these things. The Inspire is a really cool one, but again, these are all basically the same. And again, no non-OC models, which I thought was interesting. And I don't know, I feel like they're a little too thick for 70 class GPUs, but that's just my opinion. And obviously, the higher end you get, the more premium quality they feel. And we have no 37 or no 5070 Supreme, as I've already stated. So that's really it, guys. I mean, it's cool that you got to see the 4090 again. I mean the 5070. But that's it for GPUs from the MSI booth. Thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe for more GPU content, and I'll have some more content coming from the MSI booth later on. I hope you guys have a great night, and stay tuned for more content from CES 2025.